All right. Yeah. So good morning. If you're wondering what that background is, it's actually it's looking at something under the microscope there. And so they see it, whether it's some kind of sickness or disease. It's something up under the microscope. So the title is called Micro Matters this morning. And what that means is that it's the small things that matter. It's the small things that matter. I was listening to Jock's Radio on my way to work one morning this week, and they had UAB's coach Trent Dilfer on there. And this is what he said, and it really stuck me. He said, the way you do small things is the way you do all things. The way that you do small things is the way that you do all things. And that hit me so hard because it applies in so many areas of our life, and it'll help you identify your weaknesses or at least let you be aware of them. Because let's be honest, sometimes that we realize that we have a weakness, but we don't necessarily do anything about it. And so he says, the way that you do small things is the way that you do all things. The small things matter, like when you split an atom. I believe that's one of the smallest things that can be done. Also known as nuclear fission. The atom's nucleus breaks apart into small nuclei, releasing a significant amount of energy in the form of heat and radiation, often accompanied by the emission of additional neutrons, which can trigger a chain reaction with nearby atoms. This process is the basis for nuclear power plants and atomic bombs. It's something that can occur in the smallest areas and that are actually smaller than the eye can see, but its impact can literally destroy nations in a second. Isn't it interesting how small things matter? Something that we can't even see, something that before microscopes we didn't even know existed. And yet, when it splits, something as small as splitting the atom can wreck everything. If you have your Bibles, 1 Corinthians chapter 1 says this. It says, but God chose things that look foolish to the people of the world, and He has used those foolish things to put the wise people to shame. And God chose the weak things to put to shame the strong people. And God chose the what? The small things. Things that people despise. Yes, He chose even the things which seem to be nothing. He did this to destroy the big things. And He did this so that people would not be proud before God. So you got to learn to be masters of the small things in our life, because it's the small things that have the great impact. It's the small things. It's the things that we do every day. It's the things, the little things that make us eventually into great things. See, we need to, first of all, if you're going to deal with small things, you got to be a master of your time. So many people say things, they say, well, if I had more time, I'd read my Bible. If I had more time, I would come to church, but I'm too busy. Now, I know you have to get up and get ready. But you know, our church here, it literally meets from 10 to maybe 11:15 or 11:30. And that's at least once a week for about half of you. Now, some of you will come twice. Wednesday, the services are shorter. But actually, what's funny about Wednesday, the services are shorter, but people stay longer. It seems like that's the time where I tell people, I say, if you want to get to know me, come on Wednesday. I'm just hanging out after service. I'm just walking around, and they're practicing with the worship team, and I built a lot of friendships with you over Wednesday nights where we just hung out. And an hour and a half, imagine that, this Sunday morning, an hour and a half of your time, that could potentially shape your eternity and change your family for generations because you chose to make Jesus a priority in your life. Something as simple as I'm going to make Sunday for that hour and 15 minutes, hour and a half, I'm going to make that a priority. And you know what? It might bless you for generation to generation to generation to generation. Because let me tell you, you're standing on the shoulders of somebody else. Somebody was before you. Somebody's been praying before you. Somebody was doing before you. And you know what? You're here today because somebody before you was praying about you. And you know what? It's your job. You should be praying for others, because you know what? It passes down from generation to generation. And if you don't care about church, it's going to be a really hard time getting your kid to care about it. If you don't care about being here, how can I expect them to be here? If you don't care about putting them in the programs to help them succeed, our kids program, our youth program, other things like, if you don't make that a priority, how is it ever going to be a priority for them? Christianity is not found in church attendance, but I have found that those who really love Jesus attend church. I don't know why it is that way, but it's like if you love football, you'll go to football games. Okay? Well, if I love Jesus, I go to church. I go, why? Because I want to be with other like-minded people who feel the same way about Him, who celebrate Him, who come and say, hey, let's give Him the first portion of our week. You know what? I'll even come back Wednesday night because I want as much of Him as I can get. Sometimes Wednesdays are my favorite time. See, when Jesus went missing at 12 years of age, He was missing for a few days, and when Mary and Joseph finally found Him, they found Him in the temple. And then in Luke chapter 2, we see a picture of this here. After 3 days, now Jesus has been gone for 3 days. I hope I'm looking for my child before that. But after 3 days, they found Him in the temple courts, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. And everyone who heard Him was amazed at His understanding and His answers. And when His parents saw Him, they were astonished, and His mother said to Him, Son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you. Why were you searching for me? He asked. Didn't you know that I had to be in my Father's house? Jesus didn't say, we don't need the temple. He could have. He could have said, the temple don't matter. No, He was found in the temple. And you know what I love about it? He's not only found in the temple at 12, He's found participating. He wasn't just coming up here, hey, y'all just tell me everything. No, He said, no, let me ask you guys some questions. Let me point out some things to you. Let me share some of what life, because He said it's important. So He was found in the temple, in His Father's house, and He's participating. He wasn't there just to check the box. You see, we miss so much because we don't have time. But in the reality, if you had more time, just like imagine if all of a sudden you were given an extra 3 hours to your day. I don't know what your day looks like, but just imagine all of a sudden they said instead of 24 hours a day, you now have 27. You know, it's going to work out perfectly. We've been wrong about that, but you have 27 hours a day. You know what? You would make up for the lost. You wouldn't make up for the lost time. You would just watch more Netflix and YouTube. You would just scroll social media a little more. You would just join a different version of club ball. You would just attend another practice or game, and you would waste the additional time because, see, you don't have a time problem. You have a time management problem. Because you know what I find? You always find time for your priorities. I had breakfast this morning. You know why? It was a priority. I did. I got up and I got a shower this morning. You know why? Because it was a priority. I made sure all of my things were ready for this morning because I knew what I had ahead of me. So you know what? Those were priorities for me. So I got them done. I had time to eat. I find time all the time to work out. I find time to work. But sadly, many times, if anything, what happens for a lot of people is Jesus gets the leftovers. Now, many of you, when you have leftovers during the week, you won't even carry them the next day and eat them. But you want to give Jesus the leftovers of your life. You want Him just, let's not feed Him the best. We can't afford the T-bone for Jesus, but we'll give Him the old spaghetti. You know what I'm saying? We don't even want to carry the old spaghetti. But here, Jesus, here's the leftovers of my time. I've got a second or two before I go to bed. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. And if I die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. Yeah, I've given Him some time. But the reality is, we waste so much time. We're not faithful with the small things. I'm not up here saying this morning, you need to give Jesus 4 or 5 hours of your day. But a lot of us don't give Him 4 or 5 minutes of our day. And if we're not winning in the small, how will we ever expect to win in the large? So I need more time. You know what else? I need more money. I need more money. How many of you are saying that right now? I need more money because what? Times are tough. If you've been to the grocery store, which I haven't, but April tells me, groceries are high. Gas is high. The power bill, it's like Snoop Dogg level high. You know what I'm talking about? It's high. It's at a new level. It's at a new level. Like you were talking about Colorado this morning, Kadri. It's that level of high. But too many of us, we still find the money for the things that we want. All of these things are high. We'll all say that. But you know what? I went to a football game on Friday night, and it wasn't short of people. And it cost $20 for me and April just to get in the door. So you know what? Groceries are high. Times are tough. Power is high. But I still find the time and the money for the things that I want. Maybe you still eat out a ton. Maybe your kids still play every sport. Maybe you drive super nice cars. And there's nothing wrong with any of those things until you don't own them, they own you. And then again, we get back into that thing where Jesus gets my leftovers. I'm going to drive the nice car, but I'm going to give my change out of my ashtray in the offering plate. And there's nothing wrong with any of those things until they have you. And then all of a sudden, you have money problems. Like in reality, you don't have money problems many times. You just have a problem where you're giving the money. You think the answer is always more money, but if you made small changes, it might just make great impact on your finances. I wish Jonathan was in here this morning. Since he's a financial guy, I could say, just go see him. And he could tell you how to make small changes in your income, and it would increase greatly. It's just sometimes just cutting away things. Like people figure out how much they spend on cigarettes, and they go, man, when I cut that away, I've got all this money. People realize how much they spend on coffee, and they go, man, if I cut this away, I could have this. And you think, I don't have because I don't try. Like someone said this. They said, it's not what you do with $1 million if $1 million were your lot. It's what you do with the $1 and the quarter that you've got. It's the small things. Like, why would anybody entrust you with a whole lot more if you couldn't manage the small? Like if you were losing the money that we gave you, why would we give you 100 times more than that? It's simple this morning, that message is, but it's sound. I'm a believer in the biblical tithe mentioned in Malachi chapter 3. Some say, hey, that's not for us anymore. But you know what? I just apply it to my life and I go, hey, we've always done it. And you know what? It's working out pretty good. But look, this is what they say in Malachi chapter 3. Will a mere mortal rob God, yet you rob me? But you ask, how are you robbing me? In tithes and offerings. You're under a curse, your whole nation, because you're robbing me. And he says, bring the whole tithe into the storehouse. Hey, bring it to the church. Give it in the offering. That there may be food in my house. Test me in this, says the Lord Almighty, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven. Floodgates, this means there's going to be an abundance. And pour out such a blessing that there will not be enough room to store it. I will prevent pests from devouring your crops, and the vines in your fields will not drop their fruit before it's ripe, says the Lord Almighty. Then all the nations will call you blessed, for you will be delightful. You will be in a delightful land, says the Lord Almighty. Me and April, we've done it over 21 years since we've been married. You know what? And it hadn't failed me yet. When I made a little, I tithed. And guess what? My income grew over the years. And you know what? And I continue to do it because I believe in being faithful in the small things. The biblical tithe is what? 10% of your income. 10% off the income at the top. Offerings, anything above that. And when you hear the term tithes and offerings, that's what it's talking about. I can say this. I can say God has opened the windows of heaven and He's poured out such a blessing on my life that I can't contain. You know, and I've told you before, it's not always money for me. It's not that all of a sudden, like I gave $1 and God gave me 10. That's not what I'm saying. Sometimes it's been health. You know what? Sometimes it's been happiness. Hadn't you had times before where you wanted happiness, where you would have done anything to get happiness? You know what? I believe that because I've been faithful with the things, God has opened up the windows of heaven. He's poured out happiness on my time. I've had happiness with my children. I can remember Christmases where they're opening up gifts. I can remember ball games. I can remember all of these things. I've had happiness with my wife, trips that we've taken, times that we've been with Brett and Lori, things that where we've laughed, and I thought, man, happiness. It's been good. Yeah, it's been financial at times. Goodness, we're not what we used to be. But you know what? And I just believe it works. Be faithful in the small things. Be faithful in the small. We have to be faithful in the small things. Okay, Luke chapter 16. If you're faithful in the little things, you'll be faithful in the large ones. But if you're dishonest in the little things, come on. Some of you think, I'm just cheating a little, it don't matter. But if you're dishonest in the little things, you won't be honest with greater responsibilities. And if you're untrustworthy about worldly wealth, who will trust you with the true riches of heaven? Whew. And if you're not faithful with other people's things, why should you be trusted with things of your own? Be faithful in the little, and I will give you much. That's what one version says, and it makes sense. Do we have any business owners here this morning? Anybody that owns their own business? I didn't figure so, because I told we're blue-collar people. We don't have many. But if you owned your own business, because if you own your own business, it makes sense, because the ones you can trust to work when no one's watching are the ones you can trust to hold your wallet. I ain't got to worry about my wallet being somewhere it don't need to be. I ain't got to worry about them taking money out of it. I grew up in a way where if somebody laid $1 on the counter, you didn't walk by and get it because it didn't belong to you. You know what I'm saying? Much less $100 or $1,000 or any money. You didn't go get it because it ain't yours. Why would you go get something that doesn't belong to you? And I don't understand that. But if you're faithful at work in a little, guess what? They'll begin to trust you with more and more. But if I can't take my eye off of you for even a minute, guess what? You're definitely not getting the company's keys. If every time I turn around and I go back to you, you're over there goofing around and you're not doing any work, or you're being unsafe, or you're stealing something, or you're taking something from me, and I'm finding out about it, guess what? You don't get the company's keys. Some of you want to go and you want to grow at work. Guess what? Be faithful in the little. If they tell you to go do it twice. You want to go, you want people to trust you at work. Let them see you be faithful with what's given to you. You know what? And then they might just give you more. Small habits can be the source of your negative outcomes. Small habits can be the source of your negative outcomes. Look here, Song of Solomon 2:15. I'm sorry for that breaking up Texas, a way that you say that file. I evidently did it the wrong way. Song of Solomon 2:15. It says, "Catch for us the foxes, the little foxes that ruin the vineyards, our vineyards that are in bloom." The little foxes, the small foxes that ruin the vine. If we think little things don't matter, but if the little doesn't matter, you know what? Put a little poison in your food. Guess what? It's going to matter. How about a little sugar in your gas tank? That's going to work out well. Or how about this? Start telling a little bit of lies to your spouse. And tell me a little doesn't matter. Just be a little dishonest with each other. And you're going to have great problems. Because it's the micro moves that have massive consequences. Oh, I'm just keeping a little bit of money from my spouse. They don't know. I just put it over here to the side. You know what? And I'll be totally transparent in saying this. And April never would do this. But if I knew that she was putting a little money aside, and like a year passed or something, I come back and I knew for the last year that she was putting money aside that I didn't know about, I would be completely hurt and devastated. Even if all she had to show for it was $5 or $10, if I thought that she was keeping it from me, not that I need the money, it's just the fact that she would keep it from me. And she's not like that at all. Don't think that. She is super transparent and generous to me. I don't want you to ever think that. I'm just saying, little lies create massive problems. Little lies to your boss will create massive problems. Little lies to your children are going to create massive problems. In Galatians chapter 5, Paul is admonishing the people of Galatia for following false teaching, and he uses this way to describe how something small crept into their beliefs. A little yeast works through the whole batch of dough. See, it doesn't take something big to create an impact. It just takes something small over time. Like if a measurement is off by an inch with just a foot, by the time you go 100 foot, it'll be off by 100 inches, or it'll be off by somewhere around 8.3 feet. Because you missed it by an inch in a short distance. Small efforts completed consistently, they change outcomes greatly. Oh, I'm just off a little bit. Like my dad's never going to be off on a measurement. But I'd be like, oh, it's about this long. And that's why the things that I build break, and the things that he builds, I have to tear down with a hammer in my yard, okay? If you know anything about what's been going on. So So I would be like, oh, this is fine. It's just this much. And he's like, no, that's going to be 150 feet by the time we get to the end of the road down there. And I'm like, okay, that is a big deal. And yes, when it makes you realize that, hey, small things matter. Small things matter. Imagine what you could accomplish if you started making micro movements on a consistent basis. Because what happens is things erode over time because minor movement happens over a consistent time. Look like here, look. You see around the chairs of the barber chairs there, how the floor's one? Minor movement over consistent time. They just walked around those chairs, walked around those chairs, walked around those chairs. The first time they walked around those chairs, it didn't leave any footprints. But guess what? When you do something consistently over time, guess what? It makes an impact. It makes an impact. James chapter 3 says this, we can make a large horse go wherever we want by means of a small bit in its mouth. And a small rudder makes a huge ship turn wherever the pilot chooses to go, even though the winds are strong. Go back to that one. Man, I am just all over this here. Matt's chasing this morning. In the same way, the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And among all the parts of the body, the tongue is a flame of fire. It is a whole world of wickedness, corrupting your entire body, and it can set your whole life on fire, for it is set on fire by hell itself. The bit is small, but controls the direction of the horse. The spark is small, but it can ignite an entire forest. And the rudder is a small part of the boat, but it moves the entire ship. And that's why the Bible compares the tongue to the rudder, because it steers the body and can cause complete destruction when not controlled. And how many of you don't have to raise your hand this morning, but say, there's been a time in my life where I said something to someone and it had a great impact. If you've been married for longer than a day, it's probably been you at some point. You say something in a moment, and then as it comes out of your mouth, you almost know immediately as it leaves your mouth, oh, this is going to do damage. That's why you have to be so careful to what you tell your children and what you speak over their lives. You can't call them names. They're your children. They're your heritage. You need to speak what they are, even when they don't act like it. Even if they're acting like dummies, you don't need to call them dummies. Even though you feel like it sometimes. Call them what they are. If you're the king, they're the prince. Or they're the princess. And if you'll call them that long enough, and you'll pray over them long enough, and you'll speak over them long enough, guess what? They'll turn into those things. They'll live up to what they've been defined as. Small things matter. Small things make great impact. Like, for example, do you know that you can read the Bible through in a year, and all you have to do is read a little over 3 chapters a day? I figured it up. I think it's 3.267, blah, 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 on out. But you know what? Basically, a little over 3 chapters a day, you can read the Bible through in a year. It doesn't seem as daunting when you look at it that way. When I look at it like this, I'm like, wow, that's small print. That's a lot of pages. That will take forever. And really, no, if I could just start reading. I remember the first time I read through the Bible, I was reading 4 chapters a day. And I read through in 9 months. That was before I knew about the Bible plans, and YouVersion makes it so easy, and they just tell you what to read. I just picked up and started reading. And you know what? I got it through it in 9 months just simply by going, you know what? I'm just going to read 4 chapters a day, 4 chapters a day, 4 chapters a day. Next thing you know, I was at the end of it. It's because, you know what? Little impacts make great impacts. Little movements create great impact. It's all works together. We make a small effort, and guess what? It delivers a huge return. How about this? When I was a kid, you could save the world for $1 a day. How many of you ever saw one of those commercials that said, hey, for $1 a day, you can feed every starving kid in Africa? I mean, there was all kind of great commercials out. And you could own anything for a few payments of $19.99. Especially if you watch late night TV, they would tell you all these things. At least that's what the late night TV commercials said. It's like, no, Mom, I don't need $60. I just need 3 payments of $19.99. Well, and shipping and handling. And then you might see it in 6 weeks. But it taught me something. It showed me that a minimal investment over a consistent period of time can have a magnificent impact or produce a significant gain. The little things matter. At one time, somebody laid the first brick. Eventually, the wall of China was built. One small act of kindness to your spouse daily, you know what? It could revolutionize your marriage. One simple thing, but do it every day. Do it every day. You say, oh, I need to eat better. Well, start by eating better than you did yesterday. Change one thing. Oh, I need to work out. Well, do something a little different than you did the day before. But don't just do it one time. Do it over 7 days. Do it over a week. Do it over a few months. And then guess what? All of a sudden you start seeing the impact of the changes that you made. You say, oh, my children, they don't do well with this. They don't do well with that. Well, start introducing the right things into their life. Start praying with them nightly. And as you pray with them nightly, you know what I bet? I bet if you pray with them every night, I bet their behavior changes over time. And I know one thing that's going to change, their perception of you. By you calling out their name every night and taking the time. It may be a hassle for them at first, but you know what eventually it's going to be? It's going to be a comfort to them. It might actually protect them from the places they go. It might actually put them in safe places. You know what it might actually do? It might actually prepare the way for the spouse that they'll have one day and prevent them from going down this way and put them down this way. Because you chose it not to pray over them. And you just did it consistently. The little things matter. Have a commitment to consistency. Quit starting and stopping. Just grind it out day after day. Don't think I've got to do everything today and then tomorrow I've got to do everything. Do one of those things and do it well every day. Watch the results. You may say this morning, you say, Pastor, I can't do great things. I can't do them. You know what I would say? Do small things greatly. Do you get what I'm saying? Say, I can't do great things. I can't do what you're doing this morning, Pastor. You know what? There was a time when I was a teenager that I started doing a little bit. And God started doing it more and more through me. And I'm the culmination of 25 or 30 years of God just growing that. And it started off really small. Maybe it started off at a Bible school, or it started off with a band that I played with at the time. And God just began to use that. And He kept giving me different platforms and kept putting me in different places. And then me and April got married. You know, and then God just started doing other things through that. And then I had children. God just started, and it's like, no, I couldn't do great things. Like when we got married, I couldn't have preached a sermon like this. But you know what? I learned how to get out of the way and let God. And when you get out of the way consistently, God begins to do something through you greatly. Be consistent. Don't worry about doing great things. Just do small things greatly. Being dependable, guess what, is worth more than gold. Ask anybody that has to hire anybody right now. Being dependable is worth more than gold. You could probably get a lot of jobs right now if you just show up and work. You probably don't even have to have all of the skills needed. They'll probably say, we'll show you what to do. Can you be here? There's places that are paying bonuses out just for coming to work on time, something that used to just be the expectation. You know, we have rules at where I work where you'll point out if you miss days. I see them bending those rules all the time to keep people. We're used to it be like, if you got that many points, after 6 points, you're out of here when no questions asked. Now it's like, hey, can you just give that person half a point here, and can you just work it? They let us know, but we're just going to work with them. Because why? We're trying to keep people there. Because being dependable is worth so much more than gold, because we don't have to train somebody over to do something that's already being done. So we'll accept somebody doing 60% of what they should be doing 100%, because we just need somebody to be dependable. Matthew 24 says this. It says, because of the increase of their wickedness, the love of most will grow cold, but the one who stands firm to the end will be saved. Learn consistency. Stand firm to the end. Win the small things. Create the small habits. A few years ago, it's probably been more than a few, there were certain things that April and I just quit buying at our house. Can't drink soft drinks at your house if you don't have them. Not saying that we don't ever drink a soft drink. If they're not at my house, I don't drink them. We quit buying just cookies and cakes and cereal, and we just got them out of our house. You know what? So guess what? The majority of the time, we don't eat them because they're not there. It's not that we got some great willpower. It's like we just don't put them in front of our face. So create small habits and then do them every day. Even if you're not reading the Bible right now, what if you just started reading a verse a day? It might make you hungry to want more. Because guess what? If I was only eating a meal a day and then I was offered 2 and I was offered 3, it increases the hunger. We can do small things that make us look like Jesus more every day, but we got to endure to the end. The beauty of it is small task takes small effort, but consistency in the small things make a huge impact. Randy, would y'all come this morning? Micro matters. The small things matter. The small things matter. How big's a bar of soap? If you don't use it, how big's the impact? See, small things matter. It matters. It matters whether you choose to say positive things instead of negative things. It matters whether you choose to read the Bible or don't read the Bible. You know, even if you say, well, this person over here, they're reading chapters a day, they're reading books a day, they're reading all these things. I can't do that. Well, do the small things greatly. Pick it up. Get some wisdom from it. If you want to start somewhere, start in the book of John. That's what we're doing with our Bible club over in Weaver right now. We're starting in John. Just do the little things right. Let's stand together this morning. Be honest with yourself this morning. As there's some areas that in your life that you could improve if you would just begin. Just begin to do something small and do something consistent. I'm not expecting you to go on your diet tomorrow and go from 3,000 calories a day to 1,200. But you know what? You might decrease them a little bit. And you know what? If you would just decrease them a little bit and increase your exercise just a little bit, guess what? In another month, you'd probably see a change. Why don't we do the little things greatly? Why don't we start telling someone about church? Why don't we start telling somebody about Jesus? When you tell people about church, just don't tell them about a place to come. Tell them about a body to belong to. Tell them about how if they come, there'll be people that'll love them. Tell them about how sometimes people lose people in their life and you have to get around people and you have to love them. Tell them about times that sometimes people are sick and they need somebody to call and care for them. Tell them about the things that the body does because they belong to Christ. And everybody's not perfect and the body's not perfect. But church is a place that you can belong to. This morning the altar is open for people who say, you know what? I want to start doing the little things right. And I want to see God make a great impact in my life.
I was a wretch. I remember